think some people expected me to be more upset about the RTX 4090. I mean, it costs a lot of money, all of that, and I had a lot of complaints about Nvidia's marketing about it and this generation launch entirely. But guys, the 4090 is not the card I have a problem with. Yeah, it's not great value. It's a $1,600 card. It's not gonna be great value. It's a Halo product. That's not the one I'm concerned about. Let's look at the benchmarks that Nvidia themselves are giving us right here, showing us the performance of the RTX 4080, 16 gigabyte as well as 12 gigabyte, you know, the one that we all think should have been a 4070, but they wanted to charge $900 for it, so you better call it a 4080. Anyway, up against the RTX 3090 Ti, 3080, and 3070. Let me make myself a little bit smaller so you can see the key here. So here's the thing. If you look at the big bar graphs, this looks somewhat reasonable in terms of price to performance and scaling throughout the lineup, again, showing the 4000 series just sitting on top of the 3000 series, which is bad when you get a new generation. Let me be clear on that. And when a new generation comes out, we want to see better price to performance and replacing the previous generation, you know, at similar prices, but offering better performance at those similar prices. Now, Nvidia still needs to sell their 3000 series, so instead they're at least launching with prices above the 3000 series and kind of scaled with them. But it's kind of even worse than that, because don't look at these bar charts. This is my issue I have with Nvidia's marketing for this generation. These are showing the frame generation, okay, when you look at the tool. This is DLSS 2 versus DLSS frame generation, which does not produce frames that look as good, you know, and they don't reduce latency. They're not apples to apples frames. I'm not saying they aren't a new good thing, and I'm gonna get my hands on it. I did get a 4090 this morning, by the way. I clicked on 3 of them, I got but the first 2 just were out of stock by the time I got them to my cart, but I did get the 3rd one. I will have a 4090 on the channel soon. Anyway, I also got an ARC GPU. Anyway, And now I need to generate some ad revenue, so please watch this video and the rest of them. Anyway, these are expensive. Now anyway, but let's look at this. The 4080 12 gigabyte, look at the gray bars, guys. Look at the gray, because that is the rasterized performance. That is DLSS off. That's the actual raw power of the graphics card. So when we look at this, please notice that in Plague Tale Requiem at 4K with ray tracing off, max settings, but again, the gray bars are with DLSS off, we are seeing the 4080 12 gigabyte producing 42.4 frames per second. Yeah, these are average frames per second. And RTX 3080 producing 38 frames per second. And by the way, they're just saying 3080. They're not specifying 10 gigabyte or 12 gigabyte. So I'm gonna assume it's the 10 gigabyte, because that would be the, first of all, the default one that they launched with. And second of all, it's gonna be the one that makes their new cards look the best. Now keep in mind the RTX 3080 has a 12 gigabyte version that is actually a few percent faster. Now 42.4 divided by 38, I'm a math teacher, so I can summon a calculator with the snap of my fingers, and I also forgot what the numbers were. So let me look again. 42.4 divided by 38. 42.4 divided by 38 is giving us about an 11.5% performance increase over the previous generation. 11.5%. And keep in mind right now that the new 3080 12 gigabyte costs $900 MSRP, and I'm sure many models will cost more than that. And the MSRP of the 3080 is $700. Okay? And not only was that the MSRP, but finally, you can actually buy them around that price. You can even get 12 gigabyte versions around that price if you spot them quickly. And in the used market, I mean, it's not fair to compare to used pricing, but in the used market, they're significantly less than this. So let's be clear here. In this graph, we are seeing a GPU, you know, the theoretical successor, the RTX 4080, they're calling it a 4080, 12 gigabyte version, getting less than 12% better performance for almost 29% more money. That is not only just bad generation to generation scaling, that is like horrible. That's just horrible. Now, this is only one game, so I do want us to dig in a little bit further into this. So they also released F1 2022, or sorry, F1 22. This has ray tracing on at 4K, and again, if you look at the big bar charts, this seems to scale up evenly. But look at the gray bars. The gray bars are the actual rasterized performance, the raw horsepower of the GPU, without using the frame interpolation techniques to generate, AI-assisted frames in between, which isn't even available in almost any games right now. I mean, it might eventually be available in a lot of games, but it's not right now. Anyway, by the way, speaking of that, I'll bring that up later. Later I'll tell you which games are confirmed. Anyway, RTX 4080 12GB, 46 frames per second versus 37 on the 3080. So this is at least looking a little bit better. So 46 divided by, was that 37? Yeah, okay, so 46... it's 46 divided by 37. So we're now seeing at least 24% better performance, but again, for 28.5, almost 29% more money. Again, that is not even, it's not even scaling with the current GPU generation. It's actually worse. And again, what we want to see from a new generation is better price per performance, lower cost per frame, not higher cost per frame. That's horrible. It's horrible. Okay, Microsoft Flight Simulator is the other one that they just gave us. We have 4K resolution, max settings. Again, look at the gray bars. The gray bars are the actual raw horsepower of the GPU. And in this one, we're seeing 52.7 for the 4080 12GB, and we're seeing 43.3 for the RTX 3080. So 52.7 divided by, guys, and sorry guys, I don't have time to edit the video or anything like that, 43.3, so we're just doing some math live, 43.3. Okay, so we are now offering almost 22% better rasterized performance. And we're doing it for, again, almost 29% more money. So, you guys want to know why was I not mad at the RTX 4090? Because the RTX 4090 is a new Halo product. I would have loved to see it cost less. That would be great. But it's a Halo product. I'm not expecting value there. I'm expecting the utter peak of performance for a penalty to the value. Okay, that's what we're expecting there. In terms of the reducing the stack from that point on, see, the thing is, like, I was actually never mad at the RTX 3090 with Ampere. I know a lot of people were. They're like, $1,500, it's a ripoff. Yeah, it's a ripoff, just don't buy it. Because you could buy an RTX 3080, which got you fairly close to the performance of a 3090. Notice this is a 3090 Ti, so at launch we had, the 3090 kind of here in between. It wasn't a very big step down to get a 3080 instead of a 3090, and it cost, the 3080's MSRP was $700 versus the $1,500, right? So I wasn't mad at there being a ridiculous Halo product for people who wanted to pay that, when you could buy a reasonable graphics card that offered a huge value jump from the previous generation. Whereas what we're seeing in this generation is actually kind of infuriating. The 4090, again, is not what I have an issue with, but I would like to see the 4080 model that costs, okay, maybe if last gen was $700 and we've had a lot of inflation, call it $800. But in reality, it's $900. But if that $900 got you within a few percent, like within 10 or 15% of the 4090, then I wouldn't be mad. But this generation is killing the value. It looks like the 4080s exist just to try to get you to buy, just may as well buy a 4090, right? Which I don't think is the 4090's fault. It's the 4080's fault. This is the card I'm mad at. And again, especially the 4080 12GB giving us such terrible performance, price to performance compared to the last generation. Not only that, but the deceptive marketing. Because here's the other thing we should look at here. Look at the 4080 and the 4080. They are theoretically the same GPU despite just absolutely not being the same GPU. And here we're seeing a massive performance difference between the two. 16 gigabyte version versus the 12 gigabyte version, 66.4 versus 52.7. So 66.4 versus, what was that, 52.7? So we're seeing a 26% performance difference on this particular slide, right? And those are theoretically both a 4080. That is misleading, okay? Call these whatever you want. These are the ones I'm mad at, and especially that 4080 12 gigabyte. Now, as promised, let me talk about, here it is. This is the one I was looking for. So the bar charts that make these look better compared to the previous generation is again relying on DLSS 3 frame generation, which the older generation of GPUs don't actually support. Nvidia is claiming that we should have a few games supporting it. So they said that the company confirms that the first DLSS 3 updates will arrive within a week. And the first games to support it will be Super People, Justice, Fuyun Court, Loopmancer, Microsoft Flight Simulator on October 17th, Plague Tale Requiem on October 18th, and F1 2022, and that update is coming soon. And they're also confirming some more will support it by the end of the month. So there are games incoming, but you know, we are relying on software support for this feature. And even then, remember that normally increased frame rate decreases latency and makes your game feel more responsive, and all of the frames look equally good. But that is not true about the AI-generated frames. They do have artifacts in the image quality, and they reduce system responsiveness instead of increase it. So stacking, again, and don't get me wrong, they are a good thing. I'm glad this feature exists, but stacking up, like, okay, I'm a math teacher. You're not combining like terms, okay? These are not like terms, okay? The gray bars are like terms. The light green and the dark green here are not like terms. You're not all of these frames are created equally. You're stacking unequal frames with each other. They're not the same thing. This is misleading marketing, okay? Anyway, now there are a few more interesting things to know. One of them is a quick rumor that the RTX 4090 Ti is apparently, this is from @XPGPU on Twitter, who has leaked things in the past. Hard to keep track these days of who has been the most reliable and whatnot. But according to them, is saying the best dies are already being saved for a 2.75 gigahertz boost, 2.95 type gaming, 475 watt, 18,176 CUDA core, 96 megabyte L2 cache, 24 gigabyte beast. In other words, the 4090 Ti, or I guess they could call it a Titan or something like that if they wanted to, and estimated performance between 10 to 20% above the 4090. Now, interesting to see when we get that. If we get it a month or two from now, I'm going to feel mad at Nvidia because people buying the 4090 right now kind of will feel like they've been tricked. If it comes out a year from now, fair game. You got a year out of your 4090, new things come soon, right? Similarly to how we had the 3090 and then the 3090 Ti. The 3090 Ti came out so much later and wasn't that much better. I don't really care. Anyway, the other thing I want to mention is that Nvidia is promising big DX12 performance gains with their latest drivers. This is really interesting, and this is going to need some testing. I'm really interested in this. So it says these improvements include shader compilation optimization, reduced CPU overhead, and resizable bar profiles for Forza Horizon 5 and F1 22. It's really nice to start seeing some new resizable bar profiles because I've criticized Nvidia thoroughly for initializing resizable bar in a few games when they launched support for it and then just not from that point on. Now, they're claiming Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which has been a good showing for AMD relative to Nvidia. They're claiming up to 25% better performance at 1080p. They're claiming Battlefield 2042 up to 7% better at 1080p, Borderlands 3 up to 8% better at 1080p, Call of Duty Vanguard up to 12% better at 4K. I'm not quite sure why they're different resolutions here, like are sometimes 1080p and sometimes 1440p, sometimes 4K, whatever. They're saying in Control up to 6% better at 4K. Cyberpunk 2077 up to 20% better at 1080p. And again, remember up to, right? Up to. Well, you know, you're not guaranteed to get this. Anyway, F1 22 up to 17% at 4K, Far Cry 6 up to 5% at 1440p, Forza Horizon 5 up to 8% at 1080p, Horizon Zero Dawn Complete Edition up to 8% at 4K, Red Dead Redemption 2 up to 7% at 1080p, Shadows of the Tomb Raider up to 5% at 1080p, Tom Clancy's The Division 2 up to 5% at 1080p, and Watch Dogs Legion up to 9% at 1440p. So this is very interesting, and that will be some interesting content to possibly produce if I have time, guys. But like I said, I'm getting an Arc GPU, I'm getting an RTX 4090. I work a full-time job and I have a family, so we'll see what I have time to test here, if I do or I don't or whatever. But interesting stuff. I hope all of you have an excellent day.